question.
I can. Well, I'm not really in a position to be writing letters and campaigning, unfortunately working with the branch, but just a couple of issues that have come up in West Cork to put to you directly. One is, we think there's a grant needed for stoves for just ordinary straight timber logs. It's just for pellets and other stuff to own. So that's an issue that's come up a lot. Another issue is people down here, they've been reading a lot about the collapse of life as we know it as peak oil hits and we lose our access to cheap energy. And we're looking at our habitats, and at the moment, the way the grants are made, we're losing a lot of our habitat, our ecosystems. And I think what I would like to ask is if you could lobby a bit with the Minister of Agriculture to change some of the grants that allow farmers to buy up the last vestiges of some sort of biodiversity habitat that's being destroyed and turned into just grassland. We're losing, for example, we lost a side of the mountain recently, hedges, the old stone wall hedges, famine village, you name it, it was there, heather, all the rest. And the farmer was just going to buy the land and do that without any planning permission. And the other big thing in West Cork, because we do rely a lot on tourism, is something I've been campaigning personally on for ages, is grants to promote real forestry, like real mixed woodlands. We've had enough of the spruce and the clear felling, and again, we do need some quick change on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, what my department is trying to do in relation to biodiversity, and we've gone through the designation of sites. Now, obviously, what you're saying is that we're missing some areas, but that in itself has been quite controversial because I don't see it as a conflict, but I think we're paying farmers very good money for these particular sites. But it goes through an arbitration process, and then some of them say no, it's not an SAC, and it goes to a committee. But there has been a huge change since I've gone into the department, because I've said to them, look, all these appeals, many of them are just, in my view, spurious, and let's get on with it, because I'm under pressure too from the European Union, and I can't afford to hang around on it, and we just have to proceed. But it seems to me that we may have to widen the definition if some places are escaping our notice, and areas which are of biodiversity value are actually being transformed into areas which are sort of like a monoculture or whatever, And that again brings me to the whole question of forestry. Now, forestry is not in my department, right? It's not part of my brief at all, but it does affect me, because if we have, we used to refer to people years ago as an SS man being a Sitka spruce man, and it's just Sitka spruce all the time, and it does have it has a detrimental effect, because in terms of biodiversity, bad forestry practice actually affects our waterways hugely in terms of siltation, in terms of the pH value of the water and all of that, and that's why I try and keep in contact with the Department for Agriculture and say you can't do this and that, and we're trying to set down very serious guidelines in relation to forestry, because we have a very, very serious problem now in terms of biodiversity. We are not doing well at all, and the results of that will probably be coming out shortly, and Ireland is not going to do well. But I'm trying to stem the tide a little bit here on that. Very difficult, because you're dealing with vested interests in terms of, bogland, for example, is a big issue.
I just had to ask you a question there, seeing as you're talking about forestry.
Yeah.
I'm on the Cork Environmental Forum, a representative on Coilte's South West Peninsula's District Social Environmental Panel, and in terms of biodiversity, Coilte has allocated certain areas as being areas of special biodiversity and ancient woodland sites, and at the moment their management plans are all for clear felling.
Yeah.
And that's going to take place in the next 5 to 10 years, basically. The reason why they want to do this is because they have economic interest in taking the wood out. Yeah. And then, the idea is that they're going to plant it up with oak afterwards. But the
Yeah.
problem is that it takes a long time for
Sure.
the woods to re-establish.
Yeah.
And the areas that they've clear-felled already, things like the red squirrel populations have
Yeah.
moved out, and they're all looking for a new home, kind of thing. So,
I know.
as the kind of like environmental representative on this panel, I'm kind of investigating what's going on. And my question to you would be, if I kind of push to get the kind of like the European standard on these areas, which is not for clear felling, is there kind of like a sympathetic ear, should we say, in the government? That if we
Yeah.
kind of present this new management plan,
Yeah.
is that going to
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, clearly, and Isabel was telling me this morning about the problems with the red squirrel population close to her own area. Yeah, is there a sympathetic ear? Yeah, certainly, but it's not directly my brief. So we have to. I have met with the representatives of Quilta, and I think maybe we should set up. We have set up very successfully various panels looking at waste, looking at planning, and perhaps we could look at this area as well, and people could come up to Dublin and feed into that process. I think that would be very, very helpful.
It's just these areas, like the jewel in the crown of the country, of the county's biodiversity, and they're going to get trashed in the next 10 years.
Sure.
And so, I feel like it's my watch to do something about it. So.
Well, then I suggest that you would come up and give us more details about that. We can set up one of those committees, and the committees, as I said, are working very well. And anyone else who is interested in coming up and forming part of that, we'd like to hear from them.
Could you give me an email address so that I actually get in contact with you?
Private secretary is there, Eddie, who's been absolutely inundated with queries over the last few hours. But we're happy to do that and see can we facilitate people as best we can. Now, on that note, I am under severe time pressure and I'm way behind, but I do know there are one or two people that want to have a quick chat with me, and I'll do that, and then I have to make my way home. But again, thank you all very sincerely for your hospitality, and I look forward to coming back down again in an official capacity when the Green Paper on local government reform is published, and I hope I get the opportunity again to have a chat with you all. So thank you very sincerely.